You are listening to the You Glow Girl podcast. This is a podcast for the above average girl who is working towards becoming her best self every day. On this podcast, we will talk all things self-development, spirituality, feminism, wellness, business, sex, relationships, and all the things we are constantly improving. I'm your host, Valerie. A type A overachieving vegan, half Mexican Aries. I own a content creation agency that supports woman-owned businesses. I travel the world with my adorable English husband and spoil my 2 Chiweenie puppies. I believe we can be our best selves, live our best lives, and have it all. So join me while we listen to amazing guests who are doing the damn thing and as we all grow together. Molly Tuttle Tranchin is the Dallas-based influencer behind FashionVeggie, a blog and Instagram page which focuses on vegan fashion, cruelty-free beauty, and plant-based parenthood. Molly and her husband have 2 boys, a toddler and a newborn, as well as 3 big, lovable rescue dogs. Her mission is to support others in making kind and healthy choices in order to make a difference in human health, our environment, and for animals. I really love this interview because Molly and I relate because we're both vegan, but she has such an incredible lifestyle and is so knowledgeable in veganism, the health benefits, the environmental benefits, and it's just such an enjoyable life that we live. And so we are advocates of taking care of your body, taking care of the environment, but still enjoying the good things, you know? So I really hope that you enjoy this interview. You don't have to be vegan to enjoy it, but maybe you'll try meatless Mondays or take something out of this that's valuable to you. Hey, Molly, thanks for joining me on the You Glow Girl podcast.
Hey, Valerie, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you because, in my opinion, you are a Dallas icon in the vegan world, and you have your whole vegan fashion lifestyle blog. And so I'd love to know how your blog got started, and was it always vegan, or was it blog first, then vegan, or vegan first, then blog?
Great question. No, it has always been vegan. I had never followed a blog or had any aspirations of being a blogger or anything like that. And it was sort of a happy accident. I went vegan immediately after watching a documentary called Cowspiracy. It's not graphic. It's just simply linking environmentalism to veganism. And for me, it just sort of clicked things into place. Oh, I see. The dairy industry is the meat industry, whatever. Because I was already pretty much vegetarian. So I just went hardcore vegan overnight, started an Instagram account really to keep track of things that I would find, like vegan fashion mostly, but also vegan food, vegan fill in the blank. And so really it was just, Instagram was a place for me to keep myself accountable and keep track of things that I would find that were of interest. And I was surprised that people started following, and it just sort of took off from there.
That's awesome. And how long ago was that?
That was about 4.5, nearly 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was really neat because I was working full time in a very corporate job, and this just very quickly became my passion, and I'm just really lucky to be able to do it full time now.
Yeah. So what all does your blog and social media platforms consist of? Because like you said, you talk about fashion, but then also now motherhood and everything that, most women are going through and dealing with in life.
Right. Yeah, I would say that it is. It used to be a very heavy fashion focus, and not so much anymore. I definitely still cover fashion because I think that that's important. But just simply because of the way my whole life has shifted, it's a lot of motherhood, parenthood content. I also want people to have someone to go to if they, want to have a vegan family or a vegan pregnancy, because there isn't a lot on the internet, covering that, except for beautiful sun-kissed Hawaiian bloggers with this gaggle of gorgeous golden vegan children. And I'm okay, but what do you feed them? So, I try and just put everyday practical stuff on there as far as parenthood. I also do cover a lot of vegan beauty. So everything from, everything, if it's featured on my page, it's cruelty-free, meaning that it's not tested on animals, and it's also vegan, meaning that it contains no animal byproducts. Nothing from beeswax to carmine, etc. I cover travel and local businesses and really all sorts of stuff. I know that sounds trite, but yeah.
But I mean, it's life. I mean, you are covering every aspect of life. But let's talk about vegan fashion, because I think a lot of people don't understand that veganism branches out from food. I think there's still a huge misconception that, even candy sometimes they're like, but what would be in candy, or, things like that. So, and I think that's one thing I'm not super knowledgeable in either, is I know there's obviously a lot of like denim, for example. I know that's really bad for the environment. But what in the fashion industry is like, there are a lot of gray area, or just a lot of, or lack of information around how fashion and clothing is made.
Sure. In a previous life, I was actually a wardrobe stylist. So fashion was definitely the hardest thing for me when I went vegan. And it was also not very intuitive for me, because I just, materials like wool or silk, I had never really thought about that. It was just so much less obvious to me than if I saw a steak or something like that. I was never interested in things that looked like, pardon, it's sort of a, rough thing to say, but like something that looked like flesh, I was never interested in. And it was an easy connection for me to make. But yeah, materials like that are a little sneaky and not so obvious. And I was definitely somebody who just had made that connection for a long time. So, I think that I just like to very gently and in a friendly manner. I know people have different ways of communicating. For me, that's the best way not to alienate people. And I just like to very gently make the connections between, okay, wool isn't just a sheep peacefully getting a haircut in the meadow. Wool is actually a very, very violent industry, where workers are paid to work quickly. So there's no attention paid to the animal's welfare, and it's a very bloody business. And silk, it's such a beautiful, luxurious fabric, but, that actually means that you're boiling silkworms alive. These are things that nobody would, or I wouldn't say nobody, but many people would not really want to get behind if they were even somewhat informed. But unfortunately, this stuff is just not talked about. So talking about that isn't necessarily the focus of my Instagram and blog. I more like to provide alternatives and point out that this is a cruelty-free alternative to silk, etc. And then with that verbiage comes a lot of questions. People saying, well, what do you mean cruelty-free version of silk? Why is it silk cruelty-free? And then, I'll get into it in a, hopefully non-abrasive way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the best approach as well, because I think my approach is very similar, where it's very gentle, like you said, because I feel like if you are aggressive, then you immediately become that vegan that's trying to convert somebody or whatever it may be, and I think that goes for any belief or lifestyle, whether it's religion, politics. If you're aggressive about it, no one's going to hear you. They just hear you talking at them. And so I think that's the best approach, is putting it out there. And if somebody is interested, you're more likely to get an open mind. And if somebody is so close-minded to it in the first place, not that it's not worth trying, but I think it's one of those where it's like, if they're already closed-minded to it, it's probably not going to go super well. So you're better off leaving room for people who are open-minded.
Sure. I have a girlfriend who is very, much more aggressive with her approach. And I mean, she would say that about herself. Her, Viv. And she's very, in your face with the facts and things like that. And I think that that's because that's what she responded to. For me, I can only go off of what I respond to. And I respond to very gentle messaging. So therefore, that's what I put out. But I think that it really takes all types. I feel like all manners of communicating this information are valuable and will strike people differently. I don't know that if I came at somebody like her with my gentle sunshine and rainbows approach, it would necessarily even hit home, so it just kind of takes all kinds. But for me,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I think that's amazing that you post in that way, though, especially about clothing, because like you said, it's one of those where I don't think it's that people are uneducated necessarily. I think it's just genuinely when you go to Target and you buy something, you're not thinking much further than Target, and so I think sometimes, like, whether it's a leather purse, or I think sometimes we also associate animals and clothing with, luxury fur coats and things like that. So I think sometimes we forget that, it can really trickle down into a lot of our daily items. And I think just putting it out there is going to build awareness a lot around that. But I mean, even outside of fashion, though, you've really branched out, and I know a lot of your beliefs as well contribute to the environment. So would you say, I would say I started out being vegan for health reasons. I watched What the Health, and that's where I started, because I was like, wow, I was competing in powerlifting. But when you started out, you said it was more for environmentalism, right?
Well, actually, my initial reasons were they were pertaining to animal welfare and animal cruelty and all that. But my secondary reason, yes, is environmental. And then my tertiary reason is health. I think one thing that's really cool about going plant-based, going vegan, is that all of these like different motivations sort of all start bleeding into each other, and you start getting interested in different facets of it. Like I never really paid attention to what I was putting in my body until I started, down this road of looking into ingredients, to make sure that something was vegan because of animal rights, issues. And then I started learning about the ingredients, and that became something that I became very, very interested in. Same with environmentalism. I mean, I recycled, but I wasn't like, by no means was I a poster child for environmentalism and sustainability. And going vegan has really sort of opened my eyes to why that's important. And you are exposed through, this lifestyle to people who can explain that to you and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think one thing that people aren't aware of is that the number one thing many scientists agree, I'd say most at this point agree, thing that you can do individually to lessen your carbon footprint and to be a more sustainable human is to go vegan. And it's not an all or nothing approach. Do I hope that everybody goes vegan tomorrow? Yes. Do I think that it makes a tremendous difference for people to cut their meat and dairy, in half, and then sort of feel how good they feel, by doing that, and then maybe cut another day? Yeah, I think that's huge. I think you should do whatever you're capable of doing, but do something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree, because I mean, like you said, it's a lifestyle. Like being vegan isn't a diet alone. It's very much a lifestyle, and that comes down to, your carbon footprint. And it does open those doors to environmentalism, animal rights, and just the overall health of it as well. But that's one of the reason I love it so much is, like, I've done paleo, I've done keto, I've done all of them. I just competed in bodybuilding. Like, I've done the extreme diets. And the one thing I really loved about veganism is, like, not only do I feel great on it, but like emotionally, I feel good about the lifestyle I now have, because I'm also impacting the environment and animal rights. So it's been really amazing in that capacity. But like you said, I think it's so important that people choose to make an effort. And I think that's one thing that I love about the gentle approach is it's not necessarily like, no, you're horrible for still eating meat. It's more like make better choices overall. And so I do agree, like, even if it means, meatless Mondays or things like that. And I think a lot of it too is some people see a lot of shame and like, oh, you're not vegan, when it's in actuality, like, if people can individually reduce their meat intake, that does make a huge difference. And I think so many people feel like, oh, well, what's my efforts going to do? Or like my diet won't change the world. And I'm like, no, it actually makes a huge impact, because if you think about it, even if you have meatless Mondays, that's one day a week. And let's say you do that for the rest of your life, that's 52 weeks in a year. So that's 52 days a year that you're not eating meat, when you might have been eating meat every meal. So 52 by 3 for the next 30 years, that's a ton of meat that hasn't been now Absolutely. Consumed. And so I think that's the important thing to put out there too, is, your individual efforts do make a huge impact. And that comes down to, whether it's veganism, environmentalism, or, anything, any initiative at all, it makes a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that it's just really important for people to know that there are so many alternatives now. Like, I also don't think that people recognize how vegan they already are. Like I have so many people who are like, who I talk to and they're like, oh, I could never go vegan. I'm like, okay,
have you eaten an apple?
Yeah. What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for lunch? What'd you have for dinner? Okay. Well, news for you. 75% of what you just told me is vegan, you know, and you have these things you add on, but like, at this point, we have cheese that does taste just like cheese. Even in the past, like 5 years since I've gone vegan, cheese has come a long way. It used to all just, frankly, taste like feet. And now it tastes like cheese, you know? And same with milks and same with, you know, there's just really something for everyone now. We had a ham the other day that was like so realistic, I couldn't even eat it. My husband loved it.
Yes. I feel like that sometimes it's too real.
Yeah, it was too real. I could not. I took like a bite and a half and I was out, tapped out, like can't do it. And my husband just loved it. But my point is like, from the meatiest, I mean, when I met him, for instance, he was like barbecue, you know, all the time, whatever. Now he's like 99% vegan, and it's because there are just so many alternatives available. So that's why that's really my focus on the blog.
Yeah. And my husband as well, he was he's English. So, you know, their diet in England really revolves around, you know, roasts and potatoes and big hearty like feasts. I say like it always felt like a feast whenever we were eating over there. But a lot of it does revolve around like roasts and having your meat, your potatoes, and then your veggies. And he was very hardcore, like not doing it, you know, I can't go without my bacon, things like that. But then he slowly, because I do most of the cooking, he's like, oh, well, this is still a good meal. Like, I think in the beginning, he did feel kind of weird. He felt like the meal wasn't complete sometimes. Like if we had like a rice bowl or burrito bowl or something, he felt like something was missing. But now, I mean, unless we go somewhere nice with my family somewhere and he wants to try something, like at home, we're completely vegan. Like we don't buy meat, we don't buy eggs, like nothing anymore, which has been really nice. And I think even he has said, like he's telling his friends, like, oh, it's actually so much easier than you think, because you're basically, I mean, everyone's halfway there unless you're paleo for the most part, like you're almost there. Yeah. But now you have babies and now your husband's basically vegan, like you said, but how have you raised your babies and like throughout the pregnancies? How was that going vegan? I know there's a lot of controversy around that. Like you said, not a lot of information. So how did you navigate that?
You know, what's so funny is like, I didn't get a lot of controversial, like I didn't get a lot of pushback with my vegan pregnancy. Anyone from my OBGYN to my, you know, future, now current pediatrician to friends and family, I didn't really have people like telling me that it was unhealthy. However, I get messages from women all the time who tell me that they face that. Hey, my husband or my mother-in-law or my mother, they're saying that, you know, through my pregnancy, I'm going to need to eat meat or I'm starving the baby or whatever. That doesn't make sense. I mean, your body, I think something to remember is that your body needs protein. It doesn't need meat. It needs protein. And so you can get that protein through plants, through chickpeas, all sorts of sources, peanut butter. Like, I mean, I get probably like 70 grams of protein a day and, you know, have no meat involved. So I just kind of carried on with my life, had two, you know, pretty near perfect pregnancies. I hate saying that because I'm so lucky and I know that that's not the case for so many people. And I'm by no means saying that I had these, you know, picture perfect pregnancies because I'm vegan. But in my experience, it's just a regular old time being fat and pregnant. Not a lot to it as long as you're paying attention to, as you should regardless of your diet, your calcium intake, your vitamin D intake, your protein intake, et cetera, et cetera. I'm so surprised all the time by how people come to me and like, they say that they're getting so much pushback, and then they describe the diets of the people who are pushing back. And I'm like, they're not getting anything that they need. I mean, they might be eating protein because they're eating meat, but like, it sounds like they're eating a bunch of junk, you know, which you can do any diet, whether that's vegan or mostly carnivorous or omnivorous or, you know, paleo, whatever. You can do it in a way that is very, very unhealthy. If you are vegan in an unhealthy way, yeah, you shouldn't be, your pregnancy, you're not going to have a good time. If you do it well and take care of yourself, then you're going to have a great time. It's going to be, you know, easy. Same with the kids. Like, you know, I get people saying, oh, my husband is like freaking out because I I've done the research and I see that on top of, how I feel about animals, I really do feel like it's the best diet to feed my children because there aren't these hormones and antibiotics in the food. And, it just seems like the cleanest thing to feed them based on the studies I've read, but they're still pushing back. Again, your kids need protein. They don't need meat. Your kids need calcium. They don't need milk. In fact, studies are showing more and more that, the things that we've been feeding them historically are causing all sorts of issues, from like ADHD, potentially to this whole thing where milk builds your bones. All studies these days are pointing to it causes bone deterioration. So it's just following the science, really, and eating in a way that's as clean as possible. And in my opinion, that's eating mostly non-processed vegan food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important to point out is that you can be very unhealthy as a vegan, but you can be just as unhealthy on any other diet, When
I first went vegan, I was a very unhealtty vegan.
I think a lot of people are.
Like all the processed frozen fake meats, give me all of it. And that has evolved and my eating's gotten more clean. But any diet, bad or good, depending on what you put in your mouth.
Definitely. And I think that's also just comes with education and your research is, you can look up being vegan and you can look up the pros and cons, but obviously there are going to be cons that come up like, soy or whatever, soy affecting your hormones or lack of protein or B12. Those are like the big three concerns most people have about going vegan. But, on a regular diet or a paleo diet, you also can worry about cholesterol and your heart health.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole soy thing, it drives me a little bit batty, frankly, because that might be like the one, because I do document my kids' food a lot, like on my stories. I also set them up with an Instagram account so that if somebody's like very, very curious about what to feed their children, they can just follow my kids' Instagram account. And I get so many people saying, aren't you worried about, your little boys eating so much soy? And I say, well, why? It's if we're eating soy at my house, it's not always the case when we go out to eat because I'm more lax when we go out. But if we're eating inside the house, it's always organic soy. So that, gets rid of the whole glyphosate issue. But it's phytoestrogen. It's not estrogen. It's phytoestrogen. So it doesn't act in the body the way that actual estrogen is. And ironically, all these people who are freaking out about feeding your kids soy because of the estrogen, well, your actual meat has estrogen in it. Your milk has estrogen in it. So you're actually putting real hormones that can interfere with your body's functioning. It's kind of like a backwards argument for me.
No, for sure. And I always try to remind people as well that, those concerns are extremes. So like for something like soy or just any other hormone or vitamin or anything like that to be deficient or to have a surplus, you have to have been eating so much of it so regularly. So when you go vegan, you're not going to all of a sudden have this crazy imbalance within a week. I mean, you've been doing it for a week. It's just like anything else where if you're trying to fix a hormonal imbalance, it won't be fixed in a week. And totally. So I think people forget it's really just like anything else where you have to be consistent. You have to make smart choices and be educated about it. You can do anything wrong. I mean, you can be paleo and live off of bacon and butter and it's probably not the healthiest choice. So you might see some changes in your body that you want to see, but it's still not the healthiest thing to do. So it is funny when those are the concerns because I'm like, I understand the concern, but it's also kind of invalid sometimes. Right. But what are some of your staples in your diet for you and your kids that you love since you do have a more, or obviously vegan, but a more whole food lifestyle?
Yeah, we have a little menu for him on the fridge and he eats lots of pastas with organic marinara sauce and, fresh veggies. I always, first of all, we see a family registered dietitian who is plant-based here in town. Her name is Marla Ablon. She is fantastic. And so when I first had River, and also my husband does have an autoimmune disease. So I took my family in to see Marla and make sure that between my pregnancies and, raising vegan kids and my husband who wanted to go vegan and has all of these, ways that he needs to be eating, we were eating the way we needed to eat. And she was tremendously helpful. And from her, I extracted information like your kid should always get a cruciferous veggie in every day. So that's like a cancer-fighting veggie like broccoli, like bok choy, whatever. So typically he'll have at least a serving of that served in pasta with marinara sauce to make it more palatable for him. We eat, I'll get like a bunch of quinoa with rice, with lentils, and mix that all up with some, natural peanut butter and serve it to them. The thing about kids that people sometimes forget, I think, is that they don't know what's supposed to go together. So you can throw a bunch of random, like, healthy ingredients together, and as long as you, like, maybe put like a sauce on it or something to make it yummy, but they don't know that blueberries aren't supposed to go in pasta or whatever. They have no idea. That's all a societal construct that we've all adopted. And so now we have these like weird associations with the way foods are supposed to be paired. But so I tend to make some really weird combinations just to make sure that he gets in everything that he needs, all the antioxidants and all of that. They drink the one like thing that they do have, or River has, my youngest son is not old enough to have anything but breast milk. But my older son, he has one thing daily that isn't the cleanest, but it just helps him sort of get it all in. And that's called Ripple milk, which is like a pea protein milk. And it has like a gum in it. So I always try and avoid gums. But yeah, so we do have that daily. But aside from that, it's pretty much just clean stuff with an occasional processed food to mix it up. And
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's not bad at all considering most kids in their regular day is like a serving of gummies, maybe some chips, so things like that.
They'll have like chicken nuggets, vegan chicken nuggets and stuff like that.
And how old is River?
River is 22 months. So he's almost
two. So he's still a baby.
He's still a baby. I have 2 under 2.
No, that's amazing. You have such a cute family. I love it.
Appreciate that.
And then one thing you also told me, and I actually just, I took your advice and I just switched my dogs over to a vegan dog food.
Oh yeah? Which one?
Halo, I think.
Oh yeah, my dogs have eaten that. They like it.
It was just the only one that like Petco had it. I meant to order it, but then they were like literally out of food. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to get this one. So we're trying it out because one of my puppies has a little bit more of a sensitive tummy, just because he's a total wuss in every way in life. But they're not turning it down, but I know there's a lot of controversy around that. I mean, my entire family is just like, don't feed your dogs vegan food. Like, dogs are carnivores. And I've done a lot of research around it, and like there isn't a whole lot of like defined research for dogs. It's kind of like, oh, well, if they get all their it's similar to people. As long as they get all their vitamins, then they're good. And my dogs are little. So, I mean, they're not like these muscle-packed 60-pound dogs. They're both under 10 pounds.
Mine are huge, like basically wolves. I mean, I basically live with 3 enormous wolves. I have a Great Dane, a Pit Bull, and a Lab Great Dane mix. And they're all on vegan food, thriving, great health. But yeah, it's not traditional. People push back against what's traditional, as well as, it is touchy because people understandably don't like the idea of you pushing your agenda onto a helpless animal that is counting on you to make sure that they're getting nutritious food daily.
Ironically, when...
Totally. And so what I would say is that cats are obligate carnivores. I would never have a cat and feed them vegan food because, in my opinion, that moots the point of being kind to animals because you're causing animal suffering. So for me, cats, it's a different story than dogs. I don't feed my dogs vegan food simply because I'm vegan. I feed my dogs vegan food because the dog food on shelves at typical pet stores are full of really bad quality products like mill floor sweepings that they call grain, like meat from diseased animals.
Well, that's where I really wanted to look into is I saw Dominion. Have you seen that one?
No, I don't watch any of the movies that have any animal cruelty, and I feel bad saying that, but like I already do the lifestyle. Like I don't need to be for weeks on it.
Honestly, that one's a tough one to watch. I mean, I saw it in theaters at a screening, and if you can not go vegan after watching that, then you have no soul. I mean, it is rough to watch, but I saw in there that, when there's chicken and sweet potatoes and dog food, or like that's the flavor or whatever, for the most part. So like the way the chicken basically the concept of the documentary was that undercover reporters went to a mass production farm in Australia, I believe. And it's not just how Australia is, like it's going to be how most mass production farms in general work. But at this one in particular, they have like obviously the chickens. Some chickens are raised to be chicken breast and chicken thighs and all that. Some chickens are raised, like the females are raised for the eggs, but then a lot of the time the baby boy chickens aren't needed. So like the little chicks, and basically for the dog food, they just blend those chicks whole. And that's what was wild to me is like
chicken grinder.
Terrible. Yes. And it's like the beak, the claws, all of it. And that's after that documentary, I was like, I don't want to feed my dogs that. Like if they were out in the wild, which my dogs are so far from ever being a wild dog, like if they were out in the wild, they wouldn't have eaten, the chicken whole. So that's why I was just like, they really don't need to be eating this. And if so many brands have that. And so that's where I was just kind of like, there must be something better for them that's going to get them by. They're tiny dogs. They're not like wild dogs anymore. They don't live outside. Like my dogs are so sheltered. It's ridiculous. And so that was like a huge reason I wanted to switch, because I was like, that just, it hurts my heart to even think that, but then also I can't imagine that's in any way good for them.
Yeah, it's not. And I feed my dogs right now a brand called Wild Earth, and it's a 31% complete protein food. So that's as much protein as you would be getting from something on the shelves at the pet store. There's none of that cruelty, none of the antibiotics or hormones that's going to be in dog food that's messing them all up. So there's Halo, there's Wild Earth, there's V-Dog. There are all sorts of alternatives out there. So that's another good thing, is you can feed your dog different kinds and see what agrees with them. And also another thing that I always like to tell people is that the second oldest living dog ever, his name was Bramble, and he was vegan. He was the world record holder for the oldest living dog at one point until somebody asked him. But, dogs can thrive really well on this diet. So why would you feed them? The equivalent to me is like a McDonald's hamburger that's been stepped on and just the junkiest junk of meat, when they could be having really clean vegan dog food with a ton of protein in it. And, you need to make sure that they get all 10 essential amino acids that dogs need. You need to make sure that they have omegas for their skin and eye and coat health and all of that. But as long as you're covering those bases, which a lot of these vegan dog food brands, they're very ethical and have done a ton of research, and they have whole pages full of testimonials from veterinarians and things like that, talking about the health of vegan dogs. So to me, that's research backed. There are great options. And I feel totally comfortable doing it now after having them on vegan dog food for about, I'd say 3.5, 4 years now.
Oh, wow. That's really good to hear, because I think a lot of people that I know that have their dogs on vegan food, it hasn't been long. So I was like, oh, I don't know, if I can trust it. So we got a small bag just to test it out, and they seem fine. They love it.
That's mindful. I didn't go vegan and just put my dogs on vegan food. I kind of eased them into it, made sure that they were reacting well to it, did a bunch of research, all of that, because there are little babies and they need us to advocate for them and to do right by them. So yeah, it sounds like you're doing the right thing, and I don't know.
Maybe they'll get, I just feel like they're going to get really, really jacked now. They're going to be because they're getting all their carbs in, and now that the weather's nice, they're going for all their walks. They are loving it. Yes. Awesome. Well, this has been super, super informative, but just to kind of wrap us up a little bit, if anybody is considering going plant-based or vegan, as far as like their diet goes, what are your biggest tips for them to like get started, or even like best resources as well?
Oh gosh. See, like I need to update this because I actually had something on my blog that it was called I Want to Go Vegan, Now What? And it was basically like, milk, here are these replacements. Cheese, here are these replacements. I need to update it because food has come such a long way now since I did that a few years ago. I would say I would say follow like vegan food pages on Instagram. For me, that was just basically how I got started. Was like I made my Instagram page and I followed all of these vegan pages and just like copied them essentially,
Yeah.
And if you reach out to vegan influencers, like if somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, I need help, doing my grocery list or whatever, I would think nothing of it, of just like copying it from my notes section that I use when I go grocery shopping and sending it to them.
I have the same thing when people ask, I'm like, I've got you.
Absolutely. I mean, reach out for help because the good thing about like people who are vocal in the vegan community, we all care a lot. So it's not like reaching out to some random, person that you follow online and asking them for a grocery list. And they're like, what? Why are you coming to me for that? That's freaking weird. All of us want you to use our grocery list, and I would take time to write you one or whatever. So reach out to people, follow a bunch of vegan pages, follow, I don't even know how you pronounce this, but I guess Veganuary.
Oh yeah. I think
probably not Veganuary.
Yeah, I think Veganuary.
Yeah, because like and also, what's the documentary that just came out? Game Changers. They have like a whole plan thing now that they've come out with. So yeah, I mean, those are all good resources. I'm sorry, this isn't a more succinct answer, but I would just say to reach out for help, follow the vegan pages, follow Veganuary, because their whole goal is to, get you started out. You can reach out to me. I can be a resource. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it too is like, in addition to the research, because I think people get a little overwhelmed sometimes because, when you're researching, there's like, all these like wild recipes. And I'm like, even before I was vegan, I wasn't making anything crazy. I was a very like rice and chicken person. But now that I'm vegan, like I'm still not super creative. Like I have my staples. And so I think sometimes it can be overwhelming because you feel like you all of a sudden need to be a chef. And
that makes sense. Yeah. It's like that meme that's like, it shows a smoothie bowl or whatever. It's like just a simple breakfast from a vegan blogger or whatever. And it's like all made with like dragon fruit and berries and all this stuff. Yeah, totally. I agree with that. I am like Julia Childs. I am not. Is Julia Childs a cook? No, Martha Stewart, I am not.
There we go. I think she's an actress, right?
I was like, wait, that doesn't sound right. But no, I am very basic, and it has to be pretty much idiot-proof for me to even attempt it. So yeah, I mean, I think the best way really is just to buy replacements for the ingredients of the meals you can already make, whether that's a freaking grilled cheese sandwich. I mean, that's pretty dummy proof, or pasta. That's pretty dummy proof. Just go from there, and then just always include like a side of blueberries, a side of broccoli, like whatever, to make sure that you're getting it all in. But that's how I would start. It's just sort of replacing the ingredients and things you can already make.
Period. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it too. It's just, look at your regular grocery list and then mark off whatever isn't vegan and then swap it out with something. Cause like you said, there is like substitutions for everything now. And even if that does mean initially trying out substitution meat and things like that, like it's not the end of the world,? And so I think sometimes you can ease in and out of it. Like there's groceries, some like grocery trips sometimes where we stock up on like 4 boxes. Like we really like the Boca veggie burgers. And those
we're into the Beyond Meat brand. Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh. We have to like not buy those so much because I could eat that every single night. It's so good.
I eat it way too much. I do. And another thing is I remember when I was first starting out too, I would always ask the people who work at Whole Foods or Central Market or wherever you're grocery shopping, ask them if they've tried, just grab a guy in the cereal aisle or something and be like, hey, I'm trying to find a good plant-based milk. Like, do you have any that you've tried? Most of the time they're really informed. And if they are like, oh no, I'm 0% vegan, be like, okay, which one sells out the most? And they'll kind of point you in the direction of, which ones are popular. And you can pretty much bet that if something's always sold out, it's pretty yummy. So
that's for sure.
As well.
Yes, those. Oh, I'm not going to be able to remember the name now, but they're at Kroger. I feel like it's Seagate. It's something similar to that. They're the apple maple vegan sausage.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like breakfast sausages, and they are always sold out at Kroger. And when they're in stock, they're about $8, which is insane because there's only like 4 of them. But
totally.
They are so good, and they're made with
Yucca.
No, yellow potatoes. What are they called?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're made with yellow potatoes, and
talking about though, I think it is UCAN.
Yeah, and they're so good. I mean, I make these sausages and I can eat them by themselves with ketchup, or I can make them and put them inside my oatmeal. And I'm like not an oatmeal person, and they are so good. But they're always sold out at Kroger because they're so good.
That's so good to know. I'm always on the lookout for stuff like that, and especially for my husband, I always want to feed him like sausagey type stuff. So that's helpful. And once I can go out into the world again, I will go out.
Yes, for real. Well, one last question, because I ask everybody this just because it's one of my favorite things and I feel like it's very trendy right now, but what's your morning routine look like? I'm sure it's very different with children now and because you work from home. So do you have a set one, or is it kind of like whatever gets us all ready for the day?
I mean, my morning routine is wake up, snuggle.
What time?
Oh gosh, like 7.
Like real detailed.
Yeah. Okay. Wake up around 7:30. Snuggle with hubby for a little bit. Right around that time, our toddler wakes up. He's an excellent sleeper, that I will say, and I have no idea whether it is the delicious, clean vegan food he eats or if he is just born that way, because I know that I did not sleep train him. But he wakes up around 7:30. I go in there, give him a big hug, change him into his pajama, out of his old pajamas into new pajamas, and get him his bottle of Ripple milk mixed with some water, and I always like put a little drop of vitamin D in there and like a little drop of it's like a vegan omega little dropper thing. And he gets in bed with us and snuggles and drinks his milk. And around that time, I get the baby out of the bassinet, which is next to our bed, breastfeed the baby while we're all cuddled in bed as a family with the dogs in bed and everything. It's a dog pile in there. And then typically like husband will get up first and he will go make a tofu scramble with a bunch of veggies and like, just yummy smoothies for everybody. And so we will do that while we turn on cartoons, and River will kind of like dance around, and that's just sort of how we get the day started. I don't know, that might not be as structured.
That sounds so nice.
It's nice. I mean, I really like it. It 0% involves any like hair blow drying or makeup or anything like that, but it works for us. And I mean, the most important thing to me is my little family, and so that's sort of how I like to start the day out and have a positive, grateful outlook.
Does hubby work from home too?
He doesn't. Well, he does right now, poor thing. But no, typically he has an office downtown that he goes to every day. And he also has an office that is in New York that he flies to a couple times a month. And he goes around, kind of pops around town to different meetings and stuff like that. But we do have a home office here, so he can get some work done here sometimes. I have my little office space in the actual house, and then he has a little office space above the garage. So,
that sounds so nice. Such family goals. I know for sure. Like, if I ever have kids, I'm like, I already told my husband, I was like, I'm ready for you to coach me through it.
You would be a fantastic mom. That's
We'll see.
It's a lot, but it's rewarding, and it's funny because I have people who have come hard against me for having kids because, in many people's eyes, it is not a sustainable thing to do. for me, having children is something I've always wanted to do, and I've felt sort of like called to do. And also for me, it is a form of activism, like bringing mindful, kind, conscientious little humans into the world who are educated and involved and care and have love for animals and other humans and advocate for those things. And then putting them out into the world to make change. I think that it's our duty not to just let people who don't care about anything to breed and we just get by and let them. I mean, like,
for real. Let's start an army.
I was thrilled when I had little boys because I always wanted, like, I don't know, I love having little boys, but I was just like so excited to have, like, I don't know, I'm excited to raise like kind, feminist, like little vegan dudes. And because we need that, we need more of that. So,
oh my gosh, that is the dream. I love it so much.
Thanks, Val.
That's so cute. Well, tell everyone where they can find you and follow you so they can like reach out for resources, but also just keep up with what you've got going on.
Sweet. Thank you. You can follow me on FashionVeggie at Instagram or on my blog, www.fashionveggie.com. And it's everything from vegan parenthood to fashion to beauty to travel, etc. And I hope to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll definitely have you on again.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.